Sergeant Major Speicher was born in Reading, Pennsylvania on April 28, 1953. He has been married for 41 years and has 2 children and 5 grandchildren. He has graduated from Lebanon High School and did not attend college. Besides himself, his father and his cousin also served in the military. Mr. Speicher enlisted in the National Guard after graduating high school, choosing the branch due to its local bases. After enlisting, he was sent to basic training. Speicher described his basic training days as,
Well, I tried to forget most of it because basic training wasn't a whole lot of fun, but I learned a lot during basic training. One thing they teach you is discipline, and if you don't know discipline before you get to basic training, I guarantee you're going to know discipline when you get out of basic training. And that's one thing I have to say. I probably got more than anything out of my basic training days was to be disciplined.
After finishing basic training, he joined the 28th Finance Company. He endured 4 weeks of clerk typist training where he learned to conduct general office type functions. He then transferred to Fort Benjamin Harrison where he received more finance training. He was then able to bring that knowledge to Pennsylvania. Speicher also worked in the computer field for a number of years. The majority of his career, however, was spent in supply.
And our job was to ensure that they had all the equipment that they were supposed to go to war with, and also all of their equipment that they had was in serviceable condition, so that when they got to wherever their deployment was, everything was ready to go. It was war ready.
When asked for further details on the supply field, Speicher described some of the more difficult areas, as well as how everything was kept in order. Weapons and sensitive supplies were the most difficult to deploy, as they often required higher levels of security, and only higher-ranking soldiers could perform the tasks needed. The Sergeant Major also gave details on the system that kept the supply field in order. The Standard Army Retail Supply System kept track of the demands for supplies, allowing those in the field to restock before the supply became too depleted. The supply field was always fully funded, keeping the National Guard's units updated with needed supplies. If anything happened to be short, the supply workers ensured it would be in the unit's hands by the time they reached their mobilization site. His skills aided many campaigns, such as the Global War on Terrorism. Sergeant Major Speicher's job also included traveling within the United States. Forts he has served at include Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, Camp Robinson, Arkansas, Fort Shelby, Mississippi, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Fort Dix, New Jersey, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and Fort Bliss, Texas, among others.
He has served at these forts during both war and peace times as well. During peacetime, he described his work week as 5 days out of the 7, with the hours going from 7 to 4:30. When the United States was at war or when the country had a crisis, however, the National Guard was constantly on call. He described some of the times when he was called to serve.
Well, most times when something happens, it happens very unexpected, such as a snowstorm. Now they can predict them, and we prepare for when they do. But the one thing that stands out in my mind is, if you remember back when we were ready to turn from the year 1999 to the year 2000. Again, you might not remember that, but there was a lot of concern that a lot of computers were going to crash, because of the fact that they weren't prepared to go from the 19th century into the year 2000. So we were told for that New Year's Eve that we should be ready, which meant, of course, no New Year's Eve parties. We just had to sit there and hope that when the clock turned to the year 2000, everything worked out okay, and it did. But that sticks in my mind.
Although Speicher never deployed overseas, he was almost given the opportunity.
Yeah, during the different wars, I was on the deployment list quite a few times. And that's a common thing that happens a lot. You're on the list, you're off the list. And that happened to me quite a bit, where I thought I was going to actually be deployed. But there was twice when I really thought it got pretty serious. I was on a list to be deployed to Iraq, and that before that list ever really became finalized, that whole mission got scrubbed. So I never really made it to that one. But then there was another time they were looking for members to go to Afghanistan to help train the Afghan army. and I was on that list. And that list, I actually went through what they call soldier readiness processing. We used to call it the SRP. When you go through the SRP, you go through, they check all your record to make sure, they give you, you get a medical physical to make sure you're medically fit to go. They make sure all your records are up to date. In case you wouldn't make it home, you know, they make sure you have a will and everything like that. It's quite a lengthy progression. That's where you get all your equipment checked to make sure you have all the equipment you're supposed to have, and also make sure that all the equipment you have is serviceable. It's a lengthy process. It takes a couple of days to actually do, so I actually went through the SRP process. We also started training for that mission. We were going through all the training that we had to do, including learning some of the Afghan language so that we could communicate with some of the Afghan soldiers that we were going to train. And that was going to be a year mission, and I really had my mind set that this one was going to happen, and I was going to go. There were two increments that were going to go on that one. One was going to leave in November of 2008, and one was going to leave in June of 2009. I was on the June of 2009 increment. So we had conducted all the training for that, and I was ready to go, and at the last moment, and to this day I'm not sure what really happened, they scrubbed the mission. They combined the 2008 and the 2009 missions together and came out with a new list of people, and when that list came out, I was no longer on that list. And it was sort of bittersweet for me because, of course, I was happy. Nobody wants to go overseas for a year and go to war. But I still, in my 40-year career, I always thought I would have liked to have a deployment on my record, which sort of would have been a final notch in my belt, but it just never happened. So,
was this connected at all with the War on Terrorism campaign?
Absolutely, that's what it was all about, war on terrorism. And we were going to train. We had pretty much taken, I won't say control of Afghanistan because I'm not sure anybody ever gets control of that, but we had as good as control as you could have of it. And we were going to go and train the Afghan army how to maintain that control.
Is there anything specific about that mission that you feel may have changed if you had been a part of it?
I don't think so. Again, it was just we were going to be embedded with the Afghanistan military. Whether I was there or not, that mission wasn't going to change any.
For his service, Speicher was awarded numerous medals and other awards. While he cannot name every medal individually, some of the medals in his collection include the Army Achievement Medal, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the Army Reserve Component Achievement Medal, the Distinguished Service Medal, and the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, as well as others. Finally, after 40 years of service, Speicher retired from the National Guard, putting an end to a highly esteemed career.